This is the Penn State Wrestling Show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. Greg Pickel here with us, reporter, to talk about the end to the Penn State Wrestling regular season. An undefeated winning streak continues, another Big Ten championship in the books, but that's not what everyone's talking about, not necessarily the focus at the end of the season, Greg, after an unfortunate injury at the buzzer. So tell us, obviously, wrestling fans know about Carter Starocci. Let's have a conversation about what happened there.
Yeah, so three-time Penn State national champion, All-American Carter Starocci wrestling through a position near the end of a scoring move to complete a technical fall victory against a wrestler from Edinboro who my computer just locked up on me, so I don't want to get his name wrong here. Brody Evans. It was 22-5. The match ended with 2:45 left in the first period. It didn't end because Starocci was hurt. T. Frank. It ended because he was so dominant that he quit, finished the match before the end of the first period from a scoring perspective. But yeah, clearly, at the end of that, there's video out there on social media you can go find, but he hurts his right knee. It's clear that he's in discomfort. It's clear that, they were going to have to help him off the mat. So as we talk on February 27th, no update, obviously. It was senior day at Penn State. He was one of the guys, 10 that were honored before the Edinboro match. He can come back for another year, as can some of the other guys who were honored. So as Cale Sanderson said, and you can find the full interview with him from last week here at Blue-White Illustrated, youtube.com/Blue-White Illustrated. That, the senior day for them is the Saturday of nationals, not the final regular season match of any given dual meet. So, we'll see how everything plays out, whether Carter Starocci is in fact on Saturday night of NCAA finals wrestling like we would expect him to in the finals to claim a fourth NCAA wrestling individual championship. But yeah, if you're looking for updates, it's February 27th. I think your best bet is going to be to get one early next week when Cale Sanderson speaks with reporters before the team heads to College Park, Maryland for the Big Ten tournament. But I think in the simplest form, I would be shocked if he wrestled the complete Big Ten tournament. Who knows? I mean, Cale Sanderson said he's a fast healer, and this is the same knee that he had issues with after the Senior Open last April. So they have some familiarity here with this knee, and I'm sure that will help them aid them in the process of helping him recover and heal. But without knowing specifics, and we're not going to speculate on things and try and guess what the video did or did not tell us. But I mean, look, ultimately, there's a chance that he could show up on the mat twice at the Big Ten tournament and immediately, as soon as it starts, forfeit, withdraw due to injury, which would give him 2 losses and would move him down in the national seeding for the NCAA tournament in Kansas City. But what it would do is also qualify for him for that. Right. So he does have to be on the mat twice at the Big Ten tournament. So at the very least, we've seen guys do this before, T. Frank, where they make weight and then they come out on the mat and everyone kind of knows what's going on. And they start the clock, and then immediately the guy just walks off the mat. And the referee raises the opponent's hand, and then he does it again whenever he comes through the consolation bracket. And that's that. So,
it sounds less painful than 4-pitch walk,
right.
In baseball,
yes.
where you have to go through the whole at bat.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think at the very least that's possible. Like I would be hard pressed to think he skips it, because if he doesn't show up to the tournament at all, then he cannot compete at nationals, which would mean his season is over. So I think that's probably the worst case scenario. The best case scenario, obviously, is he's back on the mat and goes for another Big Ten title. So time will tell there, but certainly, not what Penn State and its fans were wanting to, or hoping to be discussing at this point in time. They're hoping to be commemorating a 12-win dual meet season that saw Penn State trail just one time over the course of, however many matches that is. And, clearly they performed well again, but their goal was always to not just perform well October to, late February, but also in March, when that's the time that matters most. And that's what they strive to peak for. Starocci, again, I guess one thing I'll just address here quickly, T. Frank, is that I know some people, I've seen it on social media, I've seen it on the message board at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, not in large volume, but some people wondering, well, why was he even out on the mat? And as we talked about last week, just because it's a late season non-conference match against Edinboro, it's not treated that way by Cale Sanderson and his staff. They view it not like some people do the early season, or if you're SEC late season college football non-conference games, where you get a guy in there for a couple plays and then you get him out and put the backups in as soon as you build a lead. These guys are using this as the last chance against someone that's not a teammate to fix any things that they need to fix or, continue to work on prior to the individual Big Ten championship and then the NCAA championship. So, there was never any thought of sitting these guys if they were healthy otherwise, which is why you saw the whole starting lineup in there against Edinboro, which is something we had talked to last week about the fact that you may not see everyone. Well, turns out you did see everyone, and Penn State won that match pretty handily.
So what does this do? I know we focus on the show, and Cale Sanderson's focus is another national championship for wrestling. That's the ultimate goal, individually and collectively for the team. It's not the regular season. It's not the Big Ten tournament. It's the ultimate prize. So what does Carter Starocci's injury do to those prospects? Obviously, we're speculating a little bit here about his availability, if he was not fully available or if the injury makes it so he does not reach his expected end goal. What does this do for the team race?
Yeah, so there's no question that, at the start of this season, T. Frank, I think if you go back to October or September, we weren't doing a Penn State wrestling show here on Blue-White Illustrated then, but if we were, we probably would have been talking about in the season preview this idea that Penn State could break the NCAA team point scoring record. That they could have 10 All-Americans, which is obviously very unheard of, and that they could have, maybe as many as 5 or 6 national champions. And then you see Shane Van Ness, the 149-pound Penn State starter, lost in December due to injury. That obviously changed the way many viewed Penn State's outlook for the NCAA championship. Not in the sense that they would lose it, because I think they're still pretty obviously a sizable favorite without Shane Van Ness, and it would be as well if Carter Starocci was not available. But what it does do is, again, you would have one less guy at the NCAA tournament scoring points, and it's obviously someone who has and would score a ton of points for you. So it would change the math there. Again, would Penn State be in danger if it does not have Carter Starocci of losing the NCAA championship? No, I don't think so. But it would definitely, I think, make things closer than anticipated. So that's kind of where Penn State stands at this point. Again, hopefully Carter Starocci can get healthy. There is, another full week and a half almost until Big Tens. And then there's some time off before the national tournament too. So the goal is going to be to get to nationals, and whatever he has to do between now and then to do that, he will. And then we'll see how things shake out. But certainly I think what it does more than anything is put into doubt, because of his availability being in doubt, the maybe historic possibility that Penn State was maybe going to accomplish at the NCAA tournament.
So not that it's, a little bit beside the fact, I guess is the right word. I was trying to find a fancier word for it, but maybe a formality even. At Edinboro, the meet that was, is there anything else to take from that particular situation to end the year that you found interesting in, a dominating shutout of an opponent, and, non-conference opponent to end the year?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, I'm sure the fans, and I know a lot of them that were on hand, had a great time watching Penn State roll through Edinboro the way it did. The Fighting Scots certainly tried to fight, but just no match for Penn State, as few teams are, and certainly Edinboro was not. So, no, not entirely. Obviously, the Starocci injury took the air out of the balloon, so to speak, in terms of the joyous way Penn State was going to, finish the regular season otherwise. But I think it was good for these guys. And you think specifically about Braden Davis, the Penn State starter at 125, Aaron Nagel, the Penn State starter at 133, both back on the mat after suffering some setbacks. Nagel dealing with an injury, win by technical fall, or early in the second period for both of them. Tyler Kasak, the same thing there. We talked about him having some up and down times in February. He ended up pinning his opponent. So, and then Penn State ran through the upper weights as well. So yeah, I thought it was really good, a good tune up, and that's why they put that match there. And not to say a Big Ten opponent would be a totally different tune up, but you get your guys feeling really good going into the postseason, and you're hoping that now that they got that feeling of that win and everything else, they're ready to peak. And that's been what we've seen Penn State wrestlers do time and time again, and that's what Penn State and Cale Sanderson, the head coach, were hoping to do with having that Edinboro non-conference match to end the season.
So moving on to the Big Ten tournament, which we're going to preview here in just a little bit. But something interesting that, you can read the full thing at Blue-White-Illustrated.com when it comes out. You have postseason superlatives for the club, or I guess the regular season superlatives coming here in the postseason. So where do you want to start with your postseason superlatives for the Penn State wrestling team? And what are they? I'm curious to know. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I don't have. I'm just going to rip off some some that are on your sheet that you have T Frank, and some that are not. But
Okay.
I think to me the most impressive guy this year was Bo Bartlett. When you came into the season in the 141 pounds, he was not the number one ranked wrestler there. Iowa's Real Woods was, and Bo Bartlett, by virtue of beating him handily during the dual meet season, has made himself the decisive number one seed at 141 pounds going into nationals. So I'm not sure if the word most improved would be fair to use there, but certainly most impressive. He's been a guy that's been reliably on the mat, and doing well, improving, and now he has a top spot going into nationals for the first time. I mean, I think obviously the biggest moment of the season was back when Shane Van Ness got hurt, and you didn't know what was going to happen with that 149-pound spot. Tyler Kasak, a freshman, and David Evans, a junior, battled it out. And Kasak obviously won that as a freshman, and he's the starter there now. So, that could quickly be erased by whatever happens with Carter Starocci. But for now, I think that was probably the most impactful change. In terms of unexpected ones, when it comes to expected ones, you look at the transfer portal situation in Penn State as maybe, it wasn't shocking, but if you sat and asked wrestling fans before the season which one of Penn State's three wrestlers that transferred in, that's Aaron Nagao at 133, Mitchell Messenbrink at 165, and Bernie Truex at 184, which one's going to kind of take the Penn State wrestling world by storm? I think most people probably would have picked Truex, and maybe Nagao as a closer, but I'm not sure anybody would have picked Messenbrink. And he has been a force. Cale Sanderson has praised him over and over and over again, T. Frank. So the guy that came in and made the biggest impact and most impressive impact to me is certainly Mitchell Messenbrink. Then he just goes through some of these other things. Obviously, key moment was in the Iowa dual meet where, again, like I said, Bo Bartlett beat Real Woods, and that led to Penn State winning 6 of the next 7 bouts en route to a big victory over the Hawkeyes and Cale Sanders' 200th dual meet victory at Penn State. And then, the highlight, not necessarily of the season, but of the last few weeks or the last handful of matches, was seeing Terrell Bearclaw and Lucas Cochran both bump up in weight against Rutgers at the Bryce Jordan Center and win for teammates that weren't able to be in the lineup. I think that for Penn State to win its 1,000th match with guys who are just great teammates and they just are a little bit behind some of the best wrestlers in the world and then don't get in the starting lineup often, but to be willing to bump up on kind of short notice and get the job done, I think kind of perfectly represents the history of Penn State wrestling and the future of it and the current, the present of it as well. So I thought that was kind of the best highlight of the month it was, and certainly part of this season too. Penn State now winning its 1,000th wrestling dual meet, and it did so in a way that I think paid very good homage to the program and its history so far.
You've got a couple other things that people can read over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com as far as the postseason wrap up. But let's talk about the Big Ten tournament and a preview of what's coming up. What do you got for us? What are you looking for, knowing that this is still a little bit away and we're going to have a show later to talk about all these things, maybe more in depth? What are you thinking of just off the bat right now with the Big Ten tournament?
Yeah, so I believe, like I said, we're talking on February 27th. So I believe the pre-seeds will come out on either March 4th or March 5th. The tournament's March 9 through 10. So that's going to give us an idea of where Penn State wrestlers are in the pecking order for the spot on the bracket in College Park. So that'll be interesting to watch. Obviously, they're going to have a handful of guys who are number one seeds. I would say at least 5, if not 6. So, keep an eye on that, and we'll get into it in more detail next week once we have the full information. But yeah, Penn State will be going to the Big Ten postseason individual championship as heavy favorite. That's with or without Carter Starocci. And it's a shame the conversation is just going to be dominated by Starocci's status until Penn State gets to College Park and weighs in, on Saturday of next week, unless Cale Sanderson would give us some kind of indication of what they're going to do earlier, which I just, unless he's out for the year. And it just seems to me that I'm not sure what, unless he broke his leg or, couldn't walk. I just have a hard time believing he's ending his season before trying. So
Right.
I'm not expecting to hear any definitive word next week when Cale Sanderson speaks with reporters. So that's going to lead to the topic of conversation leading into Saturday. And of course, Sunday being, what is Starocci doing? Is he weighing in? And then what's he going, what's he doing from there? So time will tell, but he is, going to be the talk of college wrestling, has always been. Unfortunate reason this time around, but again, even with his full status in somewhat of question, I just think that Penn State rolls into College Park and rolls out with another Big Ten title. We'll get into that more in detail next week. And until then, we'll have these superlatives up at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. We'll have obviously this show. You're watching, you can find more content around that as well. And I'm not sure yet. I was thinking about maybe going another direction with wrestling this week, T. Frank, but we got some football stuff going on later in the week. So it may be a lighter week, but then we'll get back into it full go, of course, for the lead up to Big Ten individual championships next week.
Yeah, for the last week before spring break, there's a lot going on for us at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com.
Yes.
As many people on the internet have said, Greg Pickel, you're the man. Thank you for all the insight, information, and our season wrap up for Penn State Wrestling here on the Penn State Wrestling Show. As he said, we will be back with more postseason